Welcome to
Okay.
Junkyard Theory. Guys, this is episode number 19, and today we have the God of War himself in the house. He's somebody who's been working in stunts since 96. I thought it was like the early 2000s, but he told me it was like way back since, so 96. Around 25 years, he's worked on some of the biggest movies on the planet, and he's here to talk to us about filmmaking and stunts because he is also a filmmaker in his own right. Nick McKinless, welcome, sir.
Thanks, Akash. Thanks for having me. I think we got the
So,
technical problems sorted.
hopefully, yes. Nick, tell me a little bit about like how did you get into the industry as a stuntman? Like, how did it all start 25 years back, or maybe even further?
Yeah, even further. So in England in the 80s, which is when I kind of decided that I wanted to get into films at some point, um, there was no training courses. Obviously, there was no YouTube. There was no other way to learn. And back then, you had to become a member of sort of the National Association in England. And there was a training, I would say, guidelines. So you had to have different disciplines. You probably heard this before. So you had to have something in fighting, something in driving or riding, heights, swimming, or water. There was a miscellaneous category, and I think there was a strength and agility category as well. So, and they had specific awards that they wanted you to do before they would accept you into this association. And not knowing anyone in the industry, I did it the slow, old-fashioned way and took my time and got all of those skills over a period of about 4 years. Once I knuckled down after I had my terrible teens, I trained pretty hard and eventually got into the association, and then it's just a matter of building a reputation, which I kind of had to do twice, because as soon as I was qualified here, I moved to Australia, and I kind of had to go through their procedures to become a stuntman. But also, I'd already done what was considered the kind of the gold standard, I guess, at the time in the UK. And so it was fairly easy to get on in Australia, and then just slowly build a reputation from there. So I think it's something I always wanted to do. I was a physical kid. I wanted to be in movies. I wanted to go to art school originally, but for various reasons that didn't pan out. So I thought, well, I'm pretty decent athlete. Maybe I can be a stuntman, and that's kind of what I ended up doing.
And who or what movies kind of inspired you to get in and break into the stunt industry? Because it's not every day that you see people going like, okay, I want to become a stuntman or a stuntwoman. Because like the risks involved as well. Like we've heard the stories that people sometimes end up losing limbs, breaking up, like all the bones in their body, like Jackie Chan. But what what appealed the most to you, I guess?
Well, I think like everyone, it's obviously it starts with what you watch on TV, which was the Fall Guy, obviously the A Team, and all of those amazing 80s shows, Dukes of Hazzard. All of those were a big influence. And then I would say I got into Jackie Chan around 1979 or 1980. I kind of, I mean, it was a glorious time. There was, videos were now a thing. And at that point, it was both Betamax and VHS, and you would go into a video store and there was all the VHS on one side and all the Betamax on the other. But every week there would be Jackie Chan movies it was actually in the foreign section. They weren't in the action section back then, so they're in foreign language. And so you would go down there and you'd watch Wheels on Meals, or you'd watch Drunken Master, or whatever it was. And I knew that I couldn't move like Jackie. I was a good athlete, but I'm not a flip monster. And but I knew I could be as tough as that. So, that was a huge early influence. Obviously, there's the classic movies like Hooper as well. And in general, the 80s was just a gold mine of action. It's definitely the glory days as far as I can see. So that combined with the fact that I was an okay athlete, I was pretty good at track and field, and went up to sort of like national level in some of those disciplines. And I began rock climbing at an early age, sort of like 13 or 14. And I was always very much conscious of training, and it wasn't just a discipline. Obviously, discipline is the most important thing about training, but it was the fact that I knew it would lead me somewhere else, which was into stunts eventually.
So was it like like you were training every single day, uh, basically maintaining your physicality, reflexes, all of that, in order to just be able to go out there on set and do whatever the stunt coordinator wanted you to do? Or would you like, before a shoot, would you like prepare in advance, like months in advance, for something like, I don't necessarily know, maybe learning some sort of a new discipline or something like that?
So before I was qualified as a stuntman, I would be training 2 or 3 times a day and working 2 jobs. And so, and back in the actually in the sort of mid 90s, which is when I first sort of applied, you had to become a member of Equity in the UK, and that meant you had to go out and do live shows, or you had to become an actor of some sort, or you had to have 36 contracts, and you couldn't get the contracts so you couldn't get an equity card unless you had the contracts, but you couldn't really get the contracts unless you had an equity card, and this was always the issue. So I found a live entertainer through some friends who helped me put a show together. I'd never performed in my life, and I did a show for about 2 years to get my equity card. You don't need to do that anymore. You just pay the money and you get an equity card. It's much easier these days. But so I spent 2 years performing at county shows, and I probably did a few birthdays as well. But it was good because I was doing fire eating, and I was combining some of my feats of strength. I was doing better nails and levering a pickaxe to my eye with all that kind of stuff that was good for a crowd. So at that point, I was definitely training 2 or 3 times a week, 2 or 3 times a day. But specifically towards movies, it all depends. Sometimes these days you're more likely to get the opportunity to spend some time training for a particular role. Back then, you just had to do it on your own in your own time. If it was a very difficult stunt, then you would obviously get massive rehearsal time, but it's doubtful that you would be allowed to train the way the guys train today on set.
And I mean, various stunts require, obviously like multiple takes because of the coverage that you have to capture from like multiple angles. What do you think has been like the most dangerous stunt you performed in your career?
I mean, from the look of it, I would say car stuff is always looks pretty dangerous. Horses are always dangerous, but the ones that I've gotten hurt on are the ones that you just don't expect. Even a simple wire gag or a simple stair fall or a car knockdown, those things will always get you. It doesn't matter really here. It's very rare that you'll do a car knockdown and not get bumps and bruises, and at the very minimum. So I would say Me personally, I mean, I've been hospitalized a few times from burns. I've been burnt a couple of times quite badly. I was hospitalized on Troy when we did that movie, Brad Pitt, back in 2003 now. And
2003, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just a freak end of the day. In fact, it was end of the night, and I won't go into too much detail, but we came on set and there was an explosion going to happen about 30 feet from us. It's going to hit a big fireball. You remember the sequence where the big fireballs are rolling down the sand dunes? This fireball hits, and these fireballs were huge, by the way. They're like as big as a room, you know. And this fireball would hit the hut, explode, and then we would run past, and obviously the explosion would be behind us. And there was a safety guy about another 15 feet to our left in a full fire gear. And a friend of mine, Guy Liss, was the first guy to run, and then I was going to run after him. And at the last minute, we managed to find some fire gel and just put a little bit on us because we just thought, just in case it gets a bit close to us. And they called action, and Guy ran. The explosion went off, and it completely engulfed us. And it engulfed. Not only did it engulf us, it engulfed the safety guy that was 15 feet away from us as well. So they said it was going to be 15 feet away from us. It ended up being completely over us. So I come running out of the fire, and I look at Guy who's running, and he's smoking, and I shout at him, "Guy, you're on fire!" And he turns around, falls over, looking at me, and he then says, "You really are on fire." And I was completely up in flames on this side. So I dived into the sand, put myself out, and at that point my skin was kind of melting off me, and the pain and the shock was turning to it wasn't very nice. And then there's a whole other story after that, which we won't go into because it got a bit hectic with the locals. But yeah, I think I spent about 5 or 6 days in hospital on morphine. Another guy got burned as well. The same night, another guy got burned, but it was kind of his own fault. And I think I was in hospital when, and I'm going to say it, so Wade Eastwood was the assistant stunt coordinator on that movie, and Simon Crane was the second unit director and stunt coordinator. And I got a phone call from Wade while I'm in hospital and I'm still on morphine saying, "Can you come in tomorrow and do that horsefall that we rehearsed about 2 months ago?" So I literally got patched up in the morning and went to set and did the horsefall. So
wow.
that probably doesn't happen that much anymore. I don't think they would pull anyone out of hospital to come and do a stunt these days.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys get insured or something like that before you go on set, or like does it happen project to project, or that's like if it does at all?
Insurance? Did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone now has to have. Certainly in the UK, they have to have, and I think in Australia too. I don't know if it's the same in America. I'm pretty sure it's not, but you have to have personal accident insurance. But for an injury like that, obviously production paid for all the hospital bills at that point in time. But I didn't take it any further because it was a freak accident. But
sure.
People have taken much less than that to lawyers and gotten an awful lot of money. And I know someone who was burnt similarly, maybe not as bad actually, and they got a 6-figure payout. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
I always looked at it like this. I always thought to myself, well, that's my job. My job is to, I get paid to take the risks. So if I get bitten a couple of times, then it is what it is. It should be
part of the job, right?
it is part of the job, and it should be part of the job. But I think in today's society, it's more difficult to be, for want of a better phrase, a tough guy or a tough girl about something like this, because people are so scared of people getting hurt and having to pay out lots of money for them. You know?
Yeah, makes sense. And Nick, like, walk me through like the process of pulling off a stunt that is not only impressive aesthetically, but also kind of serves the story purpose. How do you go about doing that? Because I know you worked as a stunt coordinator in addition to being a stunt performer. So how do you kind of work that out?
It depends on the show.
But where do you start?
So you start from the script. So you take the script, you do a breakdown of the script, and you pull out all the action sequences. Then you break down each action sequence into personnel, equipment, technical requirements, rehearsal time, and then you plug that into a schedule. That schedule then goes back to production. They plug it into their schedule. They tell you how many weeks you can have. And then you make your own schedule based on each specific sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would prefer less. I don't like, so for example, I think the Kingsman 2, which I did the reshoots for as a stunt coordinator, but Brad Allen was second unit director for those movies, and they had something like 6 or 8 months prep time. Mm-hmm. Which is a long time. I would prefer half that time, knowing that every day is filled up. I think with long prep periods that you often have weeks on end of just practicing a simple gag because you kind of got lots of time to do it. So anyway, going back to what you asked. So once you have your schedule and so let's say the sequence involves a big explosion. Let's say it's just a big explosion. You're going to use wires almost certainly. So you just have your stunt riggers come in, and we set specific gags for each person. So someone will be on a wire and they'll be going just straight back. Another person will be going up in the air, and then we'll be dropping them, we'll be decelerating them to the ground. So we rehearse each gag separately, and then slowly but surely you add a person. So you'll do 2 together, then you'll do 3 together, and then you'll do 4 together. So when we did Transformers, for example, the last night, can you hear me? I think I
can hear you.
Yeah, okay. And so when we did Transformers, we actually did a stunt where we had, I think we had 14 guys in the air at the same time. It's the time bubble sequence. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
Yeah. Movie. I remember the one.
Yeah. But it was a ton of fun to work on. And I love working with Michael Bay. He's just a tornado of energy. It's quite something to work with him. So for that sequence, we had a big truss system. We had a giant crane, and we had everyone set in their positions. Everyone knew their specific goals, and I think we got that in 3 takes. But there was a lot of people, a lot of working parts, and there was a lot of things that went wrong before that. That is a miracle that stunt even came off. So yeah.
It's always lovely seeing the behind the scenes, like how certain stunts are pulled off. And anytime you see something from a Michael Bay movie, you know that, all right, there's going to be an explosion. There's going to be people flying through the air, and like the ending result's going to be dynamic as hell. So it's no wonder that so many people work on achieving these specific segments or sequences. And but that like there's quite a lot of budget that goes into stuff like that, studio movies like Transformers series. But on smaller productions like more independent productions. You don't necessarily have the same budget or the time. So how do you manage to pull something impressive off with the limitations that you have?
Well, so for example, my short film, in that movie, I had a big wire gag and I had a big cast stunt. I had a pipe ramp turnover, and we only had 4 days, and I had one chance at the pipe ramp, and we had multiple chances at the wire gag. But and we'd rehearsed that the week before, so it was kind of the same process, but sometimes you just have to rely. So this is where experienced and solid, stunt performers come in very, very handy. And it's why certain people get used more than others. Sometimes it's not the best guys, it's just the guys that can pull the gag off under pressure. And usually you're under a bit more pressure when you have less rehearsal time. So what you will do is you will bring someone in that has done that particular stunt many times before, knowing that, okay, we don't have a lot of time. Let's say we're doing something big the next day and we've only got this afternoon to rehearse it. I would bring someone who's done that stunt a bunch of times, tell them this is the scenario. Okay, it's different location, different car, whatever it is, or different wire gag, but we'll know that they can do it. And that's how you can save a lot of time, is with the right people. The difficult thing is a lot of those guys and girls are busy. So you have to take risks on newer performers or performers that you don't know so well. But I don't mind doing that as well. I don't mind, for example, when we did do Transformers, we didn't have any, the stunt performers I wanted, all the superstars that I knew that were friends of mine, they weren't available. They were either working on their own shows or they were stunt doubling people or whatever. So I kind of had to train a new crew, but we had time to do it. Not a lot of time, only had 6 weeks, but we had time. And all those guys now, which is, it's great for me to see, all those guys, which is 5 years later, now they are the top guys. So it's nice that I had a little input into their careers back then.
That's brilliant. Talk to me a little bit about your movie, Faith. So you've been working as a stunt performer, stunt coordinator, and then you took over, the reins of a filmmaker, basically, being in charge of an entire project. How did that transition happen? And I want to know a little bit more about Faith.
So I first of all tried to make a movie back in about 2004. I wrote a script with someone, and cut a long story short, basically that person didn't come through on the deal correctly, so it all fell apart, and it left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, because I put a lot of effort, a lot of time and effort into it, and we shot a trailer for that as well. It was a horror movie, but anyway, it didn't go anywhere. And so I just concentrated on my career for the next sort of 7 or 8 years, but I always had this itch to make movies or make my own things, and I'd been writing scripts for mainly just shorts or short stories for probably a good 10 years at that point. So I had a lot of material, and then I just came up with this very simple idea that I wanted to. Really, it came about from, you can kind of thank Casino Royale. So the opening sequence of Casino Royale with the jumps off the crane, which 3 of my friends did. I always wanted to replicate that, because being a big guy, you don't get to do a lot of wire gags and a lot of wire stunts, because they always think the big guy can't move as well. So I kind of wanted to prove that wrong. And so it started with I want to do a big jump out of a window and make it look real, and I want to be on me the whole time, all the way down, so there's no cuts. So that's what it started, and then that turned into the short story, which is Faith. So I had a little bit of money at the time, and everyone was telling me just go and buy a new car, and I said no, I'm gonna make a movie, and they all thought I was crazy, and so yeah, I think it was around August 2012. I went down to Australia. The reason I went to Australia is because I had more contacts there at the time, and I would go back to Australia every year anyway because I just loved Australia. So I used all my contacts, had good friends, and also obviously Steve's in the movie. He's a good friend of mine, Steve Morris. Phil Partridge was the stunt coordinator, who's now a well-known stunt coordinator in Australia. Yeah, I just put the movie together. I think I basically did a week's prep, and then we shot for 4 days. And it really wasn't meant to be anything other than a learning experience for me. But the crew had a great time. We all had a great time. We pulled off what I think are, for me personally, 2 of my best stunts. So I'm pleased that I was able to do, a couple of stunts that I've always wanted to do on film, but on my film. So, and again, they were both under pressure. The day we shot the car turnover, I was directing one end of the street while I had guys locking off the other end of the street, ready to turn the car over, and they were also setting up the pipe ramp for me, putting the 5-point harness in the car, and I literally, it was one of those kind of rock star moments where you don't get very often these days, where I literally walked from where the camera was. I don't think I put anything on. I think I put crash helmet on, and that was it. Got in the car, and we had our lock off was failing badly. Cars were going past us all the time. Eventually we got a gap, and I said, let's roll, and we do it, and hit the ramp, and it worked perfect first time. And the good thing about it, these days, drones are everywhere, but we actually had drones on that, which is a decade ago, and drones weren't popular back then. So that's why we've got that top shot in there. That's why we've got the wide of me jumping out of the window, which you'd have had to have a crane for. But I had a friend, Leo Bund, who brought his huge drone over from England, and we were able to put, at the time, we were putting red cameras on it, which was pretty risky at the time. But it paid off really well.
Plus, you were ahead of the curve because people weren't really using drones for, many stunts back then.
No, and not only that, you don't really see car stunts in short films either. Still to this day,
yeah,
you see a lot of fights, and obviously we had a couple of fights in Faith, and but you don't see wire gags, not of that size, and you don't see car gags of that size in short films. And I still think to this day, I don't know, I've seen a short film with what I would consider, Hollywood standard stunts in a short movie. I've seen Hollywood standard fights, the dime a dozen, but to actually put proper action in a short film, I don't think I've seen it to this day. Oh, I lost you there for a bit.
Same, but you're back. Yeah, and for those for everyone who's tuning in, where can we watch? Where can they watch your short movie? Where can they find it?
It's on Vimeo. It's on my Vimeo page, which I guess we can send a link or put a link out for. But it's also, if you go to nickmckinless.com, a lot of my content is on there as well, so you can see it through my website.
Awesome. And would you ever, consider directing a feature someday?
We are I would say I'm 3 to 4 months away from directing my first feature.
Nice.
So we've been developing a bunch of projects. I mean, I've been developing a bunch of projects for 5 years with various different producers, and then around this time last year, I met a new producer who has pushed along this movie faster than anyone else. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, so
there's a bit of a lag, but
I
think we should be good.
Yeah. So I would say we're weeks away from going out to cast, put it that way. So we're very close.
Okay.
The movie's going to be called Tribal. It's a thriller. It's not action heavy, but there is some really good action sequences towards the end of the movie. But it's not action heavy. I wanted to do something that was a little bit outside of my lane, that was more of a narrative piece. And this is a fun movie. It's a bunch of teenagers that go to a festival, to the Burning Man festival in the States. And they break down on the way, and they end up in this kind of redneck reservation town, and they meet a local called Tommy, and Tommy takes them back to his uncle's house to fix the vehicle, and let's just say all hell breaks loose from there.
Cannot wait to hopefully see the project in a year or two's time. And yeah,
I hope that we'll be going out. Yeah, I hope we'll be going out probably a year from now. I've got to turn around town for my final cut. So yeah,
nice.
I would think a year from now.
That's brilliant. And coming back to stunts, so doubling another actor, it comes with its own demands, right? Like if, let's say you have somebody like Brad Pitt, his stuntman would, obviously have to sometimes, if he's heavier than Brad Pitt or like wider, he would kind of have to, I guess, transform his body to kind of fit the person they're doubling. So how have you managed to, I guess, work around that process in your career?
It's been different for me. Being bigger. I mean, I'm not huge, but I'm 6 foot and about 230 pounds, 220 pounds, depending on what I've eaten. And there was limited amount of people for me to stunt double when I first started. I was always playing heavies and thugs and monsters and that kind of thing. Obviously, I doubled Mad-Eye Moody, Brendan Gleeson on Harry Potter. I also doubled Brendan on Troy as well. I would say, and I doubled Brendan on other shows as well. But they usually had to pad me out. Brendan's a bit bigger than me even, so he's like 6'2" and probably close to 300 pounds. So yeah, but it depends on the role. I mean, so for Justice League, that was playing a character rather than doubling anyone, but it was very specific. It was a very specific look that I was given to achieve by the director. Yeah.
So talk to me a bit about working on Justice League. Obviously, people got to see more of areas in Zack, the director's cut, the Snyder cut, pretty much. And I mean, you worked for, I guess, I don't know, several months trying to achieve that physique, and I came across this term or this statement somewhere. Zack wanted you to sport veins like worms. So what was that like?
Yeah, so let me back up a bit, because I was in Australia in January, and I just had foot surgery. I just had my right toe fused. I'd had problems with that foot for a while, and it had just been fused, and I was told I'm probably not going to run and jump on that foot anymore. Obviously, that didn't happen. But the surgeons, when they fuse your toe, when they fuse the big toe, they don't expect anyone to be able to go back to do what they normally did. So I was literally days out of surgery, and the stunt coordinator, Eunice Uphart, called me and said, "Nick, I've got a job that I think only you can do," which appealed to my ego straight away, obviously. You know, and she said, "I need you to get incredibly lean in the best shape of your life, and you've got about 2.5 months to do it, and it's for Justice League. You're going to play Ares." So I didn't tell her that I'd just come out of surgery. I just said, "Yep, that's fine. I can do that." And I flew home, and I think a week later I was in Zack's office with Eunice. I just told them I twisted my ankle, I think, because I was still hobbling a little bit. I was sat with Zack, and his words were like, "I need paper thin skin and veins like worms." And he showed me the reference photo, and I said, "Okay, give me a couple of months." And they gave me time to train. I had to go in every now and again for fittings, camera tests, massive amounts of makeup changes. I think we went through probably 20 different iterations of that character.
Wow.
And then by the time we did the camera test, I was already in shape. I was probably around 6 or 7% body fat. It was pretty low. And then they had to push the shoot, as they do. So I had to maintain that for another month almost.
That's not easy.
But I think no, it wasn't easy. And but you know, it was part of the job, and I was being paid to do it. So, and they were allowing me to do my own training. So, although there was trainers on set, there was everyone had their own personal coaches. I wanted to train myself, and I didn't have any of their dietitians or anything like that. So I coached myself to that level, which taught me a lot. I come from a strength background, so I come from strength sports like weightlifting, strongman, Highland Games, that kind of thing. And so it was good for me to learn about how to change body composition in a short period of time, just from a coaching perspective. And I think we achieved the look. I think when I arrived and Sergi Constance was there, who played
Zeus.
Remind me. That's right.
Zeus.
Played Zeus. Well, Sergi's like in his 20s and in phenomenal shape all the time. So I was pleased to be able to actually stand next to this guy who's, you know, one of the top physique models in the world and actually not look out of place. So I think I achieved my goal.
I think you did more than that, because I've been seeing comments online as well. People saying, "All right, we didn't know Ares was that bad," and they were saying, you know, that's the Ares who should have been in Wonder Woman. And some people are even asking for maybe like a flashback sequence of Ares in the third Wonder Woman movie. So I think you did more than, you know, it's kind of like, you know, establishing the badassery of a character through your physique and the performance that you did. So
yeah, I think it's unfortunate the way it's kind of turned out, but also I'm pleased with the work I did on it, and I'm not sort of you know everyone knows who Ares really is, I guess. I mean, I don't want to get into it too much. Like, it's not an ego thing. It's definitely not. But I know that I trained for, you know, the best part of 3 months, and I was the one on set. I did the fight sequences. You know, I was the one interacting with, you know, the other characters and the goddesses, and being directed by Zack. So I think that people know who actually did most of the work until they plonk some other guy's head on me.
That was a little bit hilarious to see David's head on your body, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't get to, it's polar opposites. I mean, yeah.
I think let's leave it at that.
I think what they could have done easily is, if they wanted to, they could have had me even do all of the lines, and then they could have just dubbed my voice. If they'd have gone down that route, I think that they would have had less of an issue with the whole thing, really. But I'm guessing that his agents and managers already had a deal in place, so it must have been something like that.
Yeah. And this is, a topic that has been floating around for quite a while. The recognition or lack thereof for stunts in the mainstream award ceremonies, specifically the Academy Awards. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm probably in the minority as far as stunt performers are concerned. I don't think that we need any more awards. I don't think that when I got into the business, and I always felt that we should be seen and not heard. We were supposed to be. I don't mind the fact that people, actors wanted to say, I did that stunt. It's okay, because that's part of the illusion. I know that bubble has been burst now, and obviously because of social media, people can post up about their rehearsals and their skills, and clips from movies, and really show off. I mean, that's what social media is for. It's really it should be just called showing off, and that's fine, and I have no issue with that. But for me, I like to just turn up on set quietly, get called on to do my work, wait for action, make a big noise, do my gag, hopefully pull it off first time, and then go home and get paid. I was happy with that. I don't really feel that we need the awards. I understand that recognition is important, but we have Taurus, which is kind of all we need. We have our own awards. They used to be amazing, obviously, when they were televised. I hope that will come back after we've gone through all the crap over the last year. But yeah, I'm probably old school in that I don't think we need any more awards. I don't think we need anyone else to be. And also, how do you give that out? Is it going to be the best second unit director, the best stunt coordinator, the best stuntman, best stunt woman? Then we're into categories that are already in the Taurus. So if you just have, so what would it be? Visual effects. They have the best visual effects. So I suppose it would just be best stunts or best action. But quite often, the second unit director who's getting the accolade for that sequence, probably it was the stunt coordinator and the stunt guys that put that sequence together, and second unit director came in and put a camera in front of it and shot it. It wasn't. So do you give it to the stunt coordinator then?
There's a lot more questions.
Yeah, and then the second unit director's like, well, I shot it. I made it look pretty. Yeah. So I think if you could answer that question, if you could say it's a group, that's great. But that even happens with Taurus. I mean, I've been nominated for Tauruses, and I was in the sequence. You can see me in the sequence. I'm getting, I'm doing some action in the sequence. But because they would only allow, I think it was 5 or 6 people to be given awards, I didn't get picked to win that award, and they actually did win. And then one of the guys that actually won that award and actually picked up the big trophy, which they are nice trophies, he's not in that sequence. He was on the stairs outside. Sure, he was in it, but he wasn't actually on camera. So
that brings a lot of
you know, I'm skeptical of awards because of the politics involved.
That's a unique, well, that's a different perspective, and yeah, surely, I mean, there's a lot of humility that goes into what you just said as well, and yeah, man. But
I
that's true.
always felt like this, and I mean, I'm probably a rare example, but I never needed a stunt coordinator or any of my friends to say like that was an amazing gag or you did a great stunt there or whatever, or you know, the high five bullshit and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
I knew straight away if I'd done a good stunt, and 9 times out of 10 I would do it right. And you know, it's a strange thing. You can be really good at your job and you can do it right first time, and so you get paid once. If you come in, you could be another performer and you're maybe not as good, so it takes you 3 or 4 or 5 attempts. So then you're getting paid 3 or 4 or 5 times for that stunt because you get paid that time every time you do it. So
Okay.
it doesn't seem to add up to me. Surely it's the guy that does it in one that should get paid more.
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, logic does not work in certain
Not in the
places.
film business, that's for sure.
Yeah. And you know, where do you see the stunts kind of thing, the stunt industry kind of like heading down now that visual effects are coming in, and you know, some certain stunts are being replaced with visual effects, but you know, they don't necessarily have the same how do you call it, the same authenticity. But it's, you know, it's a mix, I guess. People are still people go old school. They still try to maintain real authentic stunts, and some of them try to do like an amalgamation of the two. Where do you think this is heading in the future?
Um, I got to be honest. I knew it was probably heading into visual effects and wires a long time ago, probably before most people in the industry, because I worked on the Matrix movies, and
Hmm.
once I'd seen what was capable of with wires, obviously removal of wires, um, and obviously the visual effects techniques to mold the reality. Um, with the, I guess you call it super real elements of something like a Matrix. It was obviously there was no turning back for action particularly. However, I think a movie like, and I'm going to come back to it, and I didn't work on it, but Casino Royale is a kind of a groundbreaking film because it went back to that old style of in-camera stunts. Everything was in camera, you know, and I think that grounding in reality is where we're going to be heading in the future, because I'm not a huge fan of superhero movies. I understand why they are popular, and they appeal to such a huge, wide audience from very young to very old. But I think we're going to head back to, especially as the stunt performers these days, although they lack certain things, they're way better than we were. I mean, I follow some parkour guys, and I used to struggle to say the word parkour because it used to get on my nerves. So I would almost stutter and say parkour, you know. But the stuff that they're doing now, it's as good as what we were doing on wires 10 years ago, and they're doing it without wires. So I think it will come back to, I hope it will come back to a lot more in-camera work and just using CG to enhance the action rather than CG is the first thought. It's like, okay, let's just build the whole frame in CG and maybe do some motion capture or maybe do some elements, you know, on a green screen. But I don't. The other thing that's definitely going to happen, and this is something I am very fond of, and I think it's going to be an amazing technology, is virtual production, which is how The Mandalorian was shot.
Yeah.
I think if by using that technology, along with in-camera stunts, in-camera action, even in-camera special effects. I think that is going to be what we're going to be doing. And I think because traveling is becoming harder, less location shoots will happen.
Yeah, I want to track back a little bit on what you said. About the parkour guys doing stuff that you guys did back in the day on wires. Do you think it's kind of like an evolution of stunts itself? And if so, can we see, I don't know, more complex things being carried out in an easier fashion down the line?
Yes, but that's an interesting question.
I think what I'm trying to
I
ask
think
is like, are stunt performers pushing, the boundaries of human capabilities in some ways?
I just think that the evolution of humans is that our generations get better and better. I think we were better than the previous generation of stunt performers, and I think the generations after me are better now as well. I think they maybe lack a little bit of passion for filmmaking and passion for action, but doesn't mean to say they're not good at what they do. They just don't. I mean, definitely the evolution of stunts is here. I don't know where it's going to go other than what I just said, which is molding, what we can do for real with virtual production. I think that's the way to go. And I think The Mandalorian's already doing it. And I think other productions are going to go that way. A lot of why The Mandalorian looks good is because everything you see in the foreground is real. So when guys are flying over and taking hits and getting hit by, lasers or whatever they're doing, that's all real. Whereas the background with the monsters is all a virtual stage.
Yeah. True.
I think it's gonna. I think for filmmakers, it's an amazing tool. I think it's an incredible tool. I can't wait to work on a virtual production set. I would work on it tomorrow. And I know people love going on locations. I do. There's still a bit of a thrill going on a location for a shoot. But from a filmmaker's point of view, being able to control the light for a whole day or for whole weeks is huge. So I can, on a virtual production, I can shoot on golden hour as many days in a row as I want.
Yeah, it's like a filmmaker's wet dream.
It totally is. It totally is. That's why I mean I have a few shorts that would be amazing for this, and I'm in a position where I have a very good friend of mine who's just joined a company who does all of these kind of things. So I'm hoping at some point we'll get to collaborate. That's Neil Huxley, who's a commercial director, and he directed the Shadow of War. I guess short film really, but it was an advertisement commercial for the game.
The game, yeah, the cinematic teaser, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What projects besides the feature that you are going to be directing? Like, what else is in the pipeline right now?
At the moment, I did some work with some friends on The Witcher.
The second season.
The second season, and I'm supposed to go on to do another show with those guys. And other than that, I'm just developing my own projects. I'm producing. I'm on the board for producing about 4 other movies.
Nice.
And I think that's the way I'm going to go, is more producing, directing, and writing. But it's very difficult to say no to stuff. I just got a phone call for a music video. and some nice wire stunts in it. And it's very difficult to say no, because it's nice to be creative and it's nice to help someone create their vision. So I think I'll keep my hand in for the time being. And also I still love performing. So I don't like wearing costumes or beards or wigs. People who know me well in the industry, that's an ongoing joke, is just put Nick in a beard or put Nick in a wig. Yeah. But yeah, I think we're in a good place right now.
Gotcha. And I don't know whether, hopefully I'm not stepping over a boundary asking this, but age and stunt performance, like how, inevitably, like the human body kind of like wears out, and like if you are a stunt person, you sustain more injuries than the average human being. And even for, let's say, even for a martial artist, like with age comes various different barriers and limitations. So pushing through that, like what has it taught you? Because you've been doing this for a long time.
Well, probably up until about 10 years ago, or maybe even, probably 10 years ago, I just felt like I could still run through walls. I was kind of still pretty fearless. And I had still built up some injuries, but it was kind of irrelevant. But I turned 50 last year, and I think my days of...
You don't look 50.
Of doing... well, I think that's my mum's genetics. I can thank my mum for that. She's 70. She doesn't 70. But I think you just have to be honest with yourself about what you can and can't do. I know stunt guys that don't want to stunt coordinate and they just want to continue performing, and they're all in their 50s, and some of them are in their 60s, some of them are in their 70s. One of my favorite stuntmen in the industry, and he doesn't get any recognition. He must be 70 now. Is Nick Hobbs, and Nick is a living legend. And I remember when we did Fury, the Brad Pitt movie, the tank, and we needed an old guy to take a bullet hit to the head. And I immediately said, just let's get Nick in. And he came on set, and he's an old man, he's a bit dithery at times. Nick might be saying that. He's a good friend. And they were like, is Nick going to be okay? Like, is he going to be fine? And I said, don't you worry. Like, you just wait. And they rolled camera, and he did the most amazing headshot and just fell down as if, one of those old school Saving Private Ryan, you've been cut and you just flop like a puppet. And he did it, I think he did it 3 or 4 times, and everyone was like, well, that's a pro. And that to me is more, that's the sign of a pro at his age, more than someone that can do loads of flips. Because you can get someone who can come in and do flip after flip and amazing stunts and whatever. But if they can't take direction and they're not going to pull off what is required for the story, then they're no good to me.
Very true. Final question. For somebody looking to get into your line of work, what advice would you give them?
For stunts?
Yep.
I think you need 3 things to be a stuntman. You need to have what I call ticker or heart. You need to have, or bottle. So you need to know that you're going to commit to a stunt, and you're going to go hard, and you're going to probably get bumps and bruises and cuts, and you may even break a bone now and again or whatever. Just be willing to do that. Don't think that sometimes happens every week. Sometimes it doesn't happen for months and months and months. But if you're a full-time stuntman, at some point, or stunt will, you're going to be in a position where someone's going to say, I want you to do this, and it's going to be a little bit gnarly. So that's the first thing, is have heart, have passion. But also, passion for the job and for the job that you're doing, you know, the stunt that you're doing. Another simple thing is just turn up on time. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but timekeeping, especially these days, is not something that people seem to think is that important. But I respect anyone who, you know, if I'm asking you to come in at 6:30 in the morning, be there at 6:20, you know?
Sure.
So, and these are not probably the answers you're expecting.
Definitely not.
Probably expecting, oh, you should train martial arts and you should train. You know,
Yeah.
all of that is very relevant, but you should be doing that anyway. You know, you should be doing, all of your training should just be something that you do, like brushing your teeth. So
True.
if you're a driver, you should be doing some kind of motorsport at the weekends. If you're a bike guy, you should be motocrossing at the weekends. If you're, you know, a parkour guy, you should be jumping off buildings at the weekend. Whatever it is, you know. And then the other thing is just to be polite, just to be a nice person on set, because when we're you know, we're talking about location shoots, if we're going on a location for, let's say, 3 months or even 3 weeks, you want to go with people that you like. So
Yeah.
quite often I've picked guys that are not the most talented, and that's no detriment to them. But, you know, you could have got, you know, the number one guy, let's say, for whatever it is. But I would go with other guys because I know I'm going to get on with them. I know they're going to turn up on time. I know they're going to commit to the stunt. I know they're not going to, you know, they're all going to get on with the crew. Whereas maybe the guy that's a bit of a, you know, a rock star doesn't turn up on time. He kind of doesn't really want to get on with the crew because he thinks he's better than everyone else, or she thinks he's better than everyone else, or, you know, they're maybe, you know, not rude, but they're, you know, they're about themselves rather than the team, you know. So I think those things are way more important than skills, because skills you should have, you know. And there's no excuse these days, you know. There's tutorials, there's YouTube videos galore. You can, you know, I can remember going back to those video days. I can remember, it might have been Armor of God, Jackie Chan movie, and I remember slowing it down, rewinding it, and then watching it again, and rewinding it and watching it again, just to figure out how he was doing this particular move. Well, now you can just do that on YouTube, you know, and you can make it a quarter speed or half speed or whatever. So there's no excuse for not having the skills, but I think those more, and I guess all of those things you could put into life as well, really. You know, you should have passion for life. You should,
Sure.
if you're going to meet someone, turn up on time, you know, and be polite and be kind, you know. So
I think the human factor is definitely something that, you know, not just a stunt person, but filmmakers in general, it's something that's really important, you know, for their careers. So it's really brilliant that you touched up on that.
Yeah, I think so. And as I say, if there's one thing a modern stunt performer is lacking, it might be that heart. It might be that bottle a little bit, because, and it's not their fault. It's just the society they've been brought up in is not the society that we grew up in. You know, we grew up in a time where, you know, I can remember I would come home every day with bleeding knees and bleeding elbows, and, you know, Mom, look, and they'd be like, go away. Well, now I think that they're just, you know, okay, get the cotton wool out, you know.
That's very true. I know I said that was the final question, but we have a question from the audience. This is pretty too good to ignore. How do you get the best out of someone who is not trained in stunts?
You need a lot of rehearsal time. So when I did Edge of Tomorrow, the Tom Cruise movie, again with Wade Eastwood and Simon Crane, I was kind of given Emily Blunt to look after and train, and Emily's lovely lady, but physicality wasn't her thing at that time. She's great now, but it was all new to her. I think her fight experience at that point was probably very minimal. But it was just time. We had a great stunt double that really looked after her. And we just had her time. And she pulled off some pretty nice wire gags on the beach for that particular sequence on her own. I know at one stage she, got a few little injuries. She even got I think a sword smacked her in the face, or a stick or a weapon of some sort, or a gun or something. But she got back up, went on the wire, and did it again. So time and rehearsal time and a good stunt double so that they can visually see what they're trying to achieve.
Gotcha. Nick,
not
thank you so much.
Not everyone is Tom Cruise,
That is true. That's
Thank God, right?
Gives you guys a career. So yeah, definitely.
Tom's amazing. Tom's the most intense, incredible guy. He could have been a stuntman for sure. He is a stuntman, really. So I have nothing but respect for the guy.
True. Yeah. And it's still nice to see him doing it at, I don't know how old he is, but yeah, he's still continuing to entertain us with finding probably. Yeah. He's inventing ways to kill himself on camera, but he's failing and entertaining us in the process. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nick, thank you so much for joining and enlightening us with your knowledge in the stunt industry. It was amazing having you, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Akash. Hopefully you got something out of it. Hopefully I didn't quash anyone's dreams too much.
I'm pretty sure if anything, you just invigorated them a little bit more. So
good.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Awesome, guys. Till then, this is Junkyard Theory.